Hey guys. So today we're going to learn the second rule. We're going to learn how to work with a power on top of another power. That means you're going to have an exponent on top of another exponent. Okay, so we're going to start by breaking it down like we did yesterday to see if we can find the rule. Okay, so notice that this exponent of a 3 is touching the parenthesis, which means our base is everything on the inside. So my base is x squared. So this is telling me I want 3 of these guys. So I'm going to write it out. X squared times x squared times x squared. So this should look like what we did yesterday. I see that I'm multiplying x's together, so I'm going to have x. And yesterday we learned if we have x squared times x squared times x squared, we add these together. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. So x squared to the third power is x to the sixth. So remember, we're looking for a pattern. Okay, here. I know my exponent of 4 is touching parentheses, so everything inside the parentheses is the base. So 3 squared is my base. This is telling me I want 4 of these guys. So we're multiplying 3's together. I have 3 squared times 3 squared times 3 squared times 3 squared. So we add our exponents together. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 gives me to the 8th power. Okay. So my exponent of 3 is touching parentheses, which means my base is everything on the inside. It's telling me I want 3 of these guys. Okay, so I'm going to start with my regular numbers, the coefficients. I have 2, 2, and 2, so treat them like normal. We're just going to multiply them. 2 times 2 times 2 is going to give me 8. And then I'm going to look at my ends. I have n to the fourth times n to the fourth times n to the fourth. So I add the exponents. 4 plus 4 plus 4 gives me a 12. My exponent of 2 is touching parentheses, so everything on the inside is my base. So I want 2 of these guys. So I'm going to start with my regular numbers. We treat them like normal. So I have 3 times 3, which is 9. And then I'm going to look at my x's. I have x to the 6th power times x to the 6th power. That's going to give me x to the 12th power. 6 plus 6 is 12. Okay, so remember, we're trying to find a rule. We're trying to find a shortcut that I can jump straight from here to get to my answer. From here to get to my answer. From here to get to here. Okay, so it says, what do you think the rule is for raising a power to the power? Well, if I look at my exponents, I had a 2, exponent of a 2 raised to the third power, and it became a 6. I had an exponent of 2 raised to the fourth power, and it became an 8. I have an exponent of a 4 raised to the third power, and it became a 12. An exponent of a 6 raised to the exponent of a 2, and that became a 12. So the pattern here is to multiply these. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. 6 times 2 is 12. So when you have an exponent on top of another exponent, the rule is to multiply. What helps me remember that is that notice that there's a parenthesis right here between the exponents. So the parenthesis is a dead giveaway for multiply. That reminds me to multiply my exponents. Okay, so we know the rule now is to multiply the exponents, but I have 3x to the third raised to the third power. I have not really talked about what I'm supposed to do with this guy right here. So this exponent belongs to everything on the inside of the parentheses. So the first thing I have to give this exponent to is this 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 3. I'm going to always put my number in parentheses. I'm going to put this 3 in parentheses and raise it to the exponent that's on the outside. So I'm going to take that 3 in parentheses, zoom in some, and raise it to that exponent that was on the outside. So 3 to the third power. Okay, now this exponent also belongs to this x. Well, notice this x already has an exponent, so we have an exponent on top of an exponent. This parentheses is a reminder that we should multiply. So 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, we don't want to leave our answer like this because I can simplify this piece right here. So I'm going to go ahead and type that into my calculator. So I have my 3 in parentheses, and remember to raise it to an exponent, you use this little caret key. 3 to the 3rd power is 27. So I know my final answer will be written as 27x to the 9th. Okay, so I have this 4 on the outside of the parentheses, so this exponent belongs to everything on the inside. The first thing I have to give it to is this 4. So I'm going to take this 4, put it in parentheses, and then raise it to this exponent. So now that I gave this exponent to this 4, I have to give the exponent to the x. Notice x already has an exponent, so I have an exponent on top of an exponent. This reminds me right here to multiply. 4 times 4 is 16. I'm not quite done. I want to make sure I type this into my calculator so it's simplified. So 4 raised to the 4th power is 256. So my final answer will be 256 x to the 16th power. All right, this is going to step it up a notch. This is an example that goes over what we learned today and also includes what we learned yesterday. So I see 2 different sets of parentheses. On the first set of parentheses, I notice I have this exponent on the outside. On my next set of parentheses, there is no exponent on the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take care of this first piece right here. This is the new thing, what we're learning today. So I'm going to work on this piece first, and I'll just let this drop down. So this exponent belongs to everything that's on the inside of the parentheses. So the first thing I have to give this exponent to is this negative 3. So I'm going to put negative 3 in parentheses and then raise it to that 2nd power. The next thing I have to give this exponent to is this x. Well, notice x already has an exponent, so I have an exponent on top of an exponent, which means I'm going to multiply. Remember, the parentheses is a reminder to multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. The next thing I need to give this exponent to is the y. The y already has an exponent. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. It's a 1. So I'm going to take this 1 and multiply by the exponent on the outside. 1 times 2 is 2. And then I'm just going to drop this guy down for now. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify this guy right here. So I'm going to go type that into my calculator. Negative 3 in parentheses squared is a positive 9. And then I'm going to drop everything else down. Okay, from here, it's exactly what we did yesterday. So I know we take care of the regular numbers first. My regular number is 9 and 4. So I know we're going to multiply those together, treat them like normal. 9 times 4 is a 36. Okay, then I have x to the 6th over here, and I'm multiplying by x to the 4th. So I know together I'm going to add 6 plus 4. That's going to give me x to the 10th. Then I'm going to look at my y's. Over here I have y to the 2nd power. Over here I have y to the 3rd power. I know y squared times y to the 3rd is going to give me y to the 5th. We add 2 plus 3 is 5. Okay, very similar problem. I see here I have an exponent on the outside of parentheses, so I'm going to have to give this exponent to everything on the inside. On the second set, there is nothing out here, so I'm going to just let this guy drop down for now. Okay, so the first thing I need to give this exponent to is this negative 4. So I'm going to put negative 4 in parentheses, and then give it that exponent of a 2. Next, I need to give this exponent to the a and the b. Notice a and b do not have an exponent, so I know it's just a 1 on each one. So let's focus on a first. So a already has an exponent of 1. but then that's being raised to the exponent of 2. So remember, this parenthesis is a dead giveaway to multiply. So for the a, 1 times 2 is 2. Then we have to give it to this b. b already has an exponent of 1, but it's being raised to the power of 2, so I multiply. 1 times 2 is 2, so that's going to be b squared. Okay, so since there's no exponent out here, I'm just going to go ahead and drop that down. I want to simplify this guy, so I'm going to go type that in my calculator. -4 in parentheses squared is going to give me a positive 16. And then everything else will drop down. So from here, it's like what we did yesterday. I'm going to take my regular numbers and treat them like normal. So I have 16 and a 2, so I'll multiply. 16 times 2 is 32. Then I'm going to look at my a's. Over here I have a squared, and I'm multiplying by a squared, so I add the exponents. A squared times a squared is going to give me a to the 4th. Then I'm going to look at my b's. Over here I have b squared, and I'm multiplying it by b to the 3rd, so I add my exponents. The 2 plus 3 is going to give me b to the 5th. Okay, on this next example, notice that this 5 is out front. It is not inside the parentheses. So this exponent does not belong to this 5. This exponent of a 2 will only belong to the stuff on the inside of the parentheses. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to drop down this 5. Okay, I need to give this exponent to everything on the inside, starting with this 4. So I'm going to put this 4 in parentheses and then raise it to the power of 2. So now that I've given this exponent to the 4, now I need to give it to my x. Notice x already has an exponent, so I have an exponent on top of an exponent, which means I'm going to multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. Then I need to give it to this y. Well, y has an exponent of 1, and it's being raised to the power of 2, so remember we multiply. 1 times 2 is 2. So I'm almost done. The only thing I need to do is simplify this piece right here. And so to do that is I'm going to go type this piece into my calculator. So I had a 5 parentheses 4 close parentheses squared. And that's going to come out to 80. So my final answer will be 80. And then everything else will just drop. Okay, again, notice this 2 is on the outside of the parentheses, so this exponent does not belong to it. This exponent of a 3 will only belong to what's inside the parentheses. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that 2 down for now. The first thing I should give this exponent to is this 3 right here, so I'm going to put 3 in parentheses and raise it to the power of 3. So now I need to give this exponent to the a. Notice a already has an exponent of a 2, and it's being raised to the power of 3. So remember we multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. Now we have to give it to b. b already has an exponent of 3, and it's being raised to the power of 3. Remember we multiply. 3 times 3 is 9. So the only thing we have left is to simplify my regular numbers right here, so I'm going to go type that in. So I have 2 in parentheses 3 raised to the 3rd power, and that's going to come out to 54. So my final answer is 54, a to the 6th, b to the 9th. Okay, again, notice this 1/2 is not in the parentheses, so this exponent does not belong to it. This exponent only belongs to this stuff. So I'm going to drop my 1/2 down. The first thing I'm going to give this exponent to is this -2. So I'm going to put my -2 in parentheses, raise it to the 3rd power. So next I have to give it to that x. Notice x already has an exponent and it's being raised to the power of 3. Remember, this is a dead giveaway to multiply. So 2 times 3 gives me a 6. Next we have to give it to this y. Y already has an exponent of 3, but it's being raised to the third power, so we multiply. 3 times 3 is 9. So from here, all I have left is to simplify this part, and I'm going to do it by typing it in the calculator. So I have 1/2 in parentheses, oops, a -2, close my parentheses, raised to the third power. That's going to give me a -4. So I know my final answer will be a -4, and then everything else will just drop down. Last one. So my 1/3 will just drop since it's not inside the parentheses. This exponent of 3 goes to everything on the inside, starting with this -6. So I'm going to put -6 in parentheses and raise it to the third power. The next thing I need to give it to is that x. X already has an exponent of 4, but it's being raised to the third power. So remember, we multiply. 4 times 3 is 12. Next, I have to give it to this y. Y already has an exponent of 2, but it's being raised to the third power, so we multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. All we have left is this section right here. Let's simplify that by typing it in our calculator. So I have 1/3 times -6 in parentheses raised to the third power. And that's going to give me a -72. So my final answer is a -72, and everything else drops. And that's everything. So bye, guys.